TV. Today, I'm privileged to be at the U.S. Embassy, and we're here to interview two marvelous people. It's a bit of a twist because today we have Mr. Niles Cole, who has recently become extremely famous, and I'm going to say extremely famous. He was on the front page on Saturday, and he's been, his video has been viewed. You might be wondering why, but he decided to get into the kitchen. And I'm not talking basic cooking. I am talking about basically learning to do should I call it the Rolls Royce of the Ugandan traditional meal, which is matoke and luombo. He decided to go down that road and climb the mountain. We're going to find out exactly why he decided to take on such a challenge. And then here on my right, we have Prossy Wanyana, who's coming from a Kafero Foundation project, which is something that has looked into taking girls into the programming sector. Prossy here is actually a graduate in the Bachelor of IT, and she's currently embarking on programming. So it's very odd. We're going to talk about gender and what are the twists that are taking place in this 21st century, where we have the man who's here to talk about cooking. David Ramsey has nothing on him. Then we have Prossy here, who's going to be talking about our life in IT. So I wanted to find out a perspective. I saw something on Facebook which really caught my eye. Someone said, we're empowering all these women to take on these roles, but is the man ready for this empowered woman? So I think I'm going to start with Niles. Welcome, Niles.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure today.
So you're speaking, first of all, to a Muganda girl, and it so happens that matoke and groundnuts are my favorite. For those of you who don't know what we're talking about when we talk about matoke and luombo, it's basically, if someone invites you for lunch and they say, could you come over? And you're like, okay. And then they say, I'll be preparing matoke and luombo. In your mind, you're like, what are we celebrating? Because it's something which is, it's highly regarded as like a delicacy, if I could say. Okay. So Niles, exactly, I saw it wasn't easy. I saw you sweating bullets when you were creating that meal. But even beyond the cooking, I saw you do a lot of domestic work during that video, from feeding your baby to cleaning up to kneeling when you were, offering the food out. So what took you on this journey?
I've been cooking my whole life, so it's something I enjoy doing. I love doing it with my family. I love doing it with my partner, and we're teaching our children as well. And for this particular dish, it's something I was interested in learning because it's so time intensive. And part of the reason to do it was to understand the kind of pressures that a Ugandan woman might face in terms of domestic responsibilities, childcare, things of that nature. So if you have to spend 3 hours every day just making a side dish, essentially, it limits the amount of time available to women to pursue work outside of the home, to pursue education, to pursue other sort of personally fulfilling things that benefit her or her family. And that was one of the main reasons for doing this dish.
What I did forget to mention is Niles is actually the Cultural Affairs Officer here at so I guess you understand a lot about the culture and finding out from...
That was the other reason to do it. Food is culture, and without understanding the way in which people eat, it's hard to understand where they come from.
Yes. Okay, so that's an introduction to Niles Cole. So this side, we have Prossy. Like I said, she's currently embarking on learning how to code with Kafero Foundation's project, Coding in Heels. Prossy, why don't you tell us more about that and why you decided to take on an area which is currently very male-dominated?
Thank you for having me, Angela. Okay. And I'm glad to meet Mr. Niles. I went back to coding because I feel like I'm so passionate about IT. Because before, I did IT as you mentioned before.
Yes.
But then I kind of went off because we couldn't get the jobs and whatnot. You keep on applying. But then later on, I was like, how about I go back into school, or I go for some training so that I can get back to this IT thing. So I love IT so much. So when you're doing IT and you are coding, actually, when you see the results of what you've been coding, you feel so fulfilled. So and I'm like, if the men can do it, why can't I do it?
I think we're also living in a society where the roles, like you said, Niles, you wanted to get into the steps or the feelings of a woman having to prepare this meal. Now, traditionally, I guess they say a woman is very easy to kind of, you get used to it because as a lady, you're supposed to be in the kitchen, so it should be easy. But with the Internet of Things and the world becoming more technical and digital, we're finding ladies like Prossy who are having to, the ladies are now getting into the boardrooms and they're studying code. And, for anyone who does code, it's very, very easy for you to spend a night in the office because you're trying to debug a code and find out what's wrong. So from your experience, did it somehow feel demeaning, or gender is a very sensitive thing? Because in Africa we have a situation where they say maybe even worldwide the woman belongs to the kitchen and the man in the office, but now we're seeing things turn around. How would you say men should be prepared, if I can put it that way? How do men prepare for the lady who's now also getting into the male streamed sectors?
Well, I think for me, that's the issue. I don't think there's such a thing as a male stream sector. Women are capable of doing anything that a man can do. Women are just as intelligent. Women have just as much capability, and it shouldn't be gender segregated. Now, if you look around the world, yes, work has been gender segregated, and I hope that we get away from that. Here in Uganda, the people that I work with who tend to be the best performers are generally women. If I want to get something done, I have to find a female partner to do it. Because when I meet with my male counterparts, they'll talk a lot, but they won't actually do much. But if I want to get something done, I have to find a woman to do it. So I understand culture and history all around the world has traditionally excluded women from economic opportunity, and that's what I really hope changes. No country can develop if 50% or more of its population is left to languish uneducated without access to the job market. And it's not to the detriment of any man for a woman to be empowered and to start doing work or taking on jobs that are traditionally considered male jobs. It's actually to the benefit of everyone, because different perspective and different take on that same work leads to a more efficient work environment for everyone.
Great. Funny that you should mention that what you just talked about. I think for me as a person, having grown up in different countries, but also having grown up in the IT system, because I did IT, I don't know if I can put it this way. Like, it's a culture shock right now for a lot of people to have women come into these places. We've always heard that women are the same, and even Jack Ma, Alibaba, he said the same thing. He said that his company is thriving simply because 49% of his team is women. But I don't know, because when I watched you cook, the first time it was very entertaining. I'm like, wow, look at him sweat, he's peeling. But then when I watched all these domestic things that you were taking care of, the child, and then I think it started to look a bit odd, because my mind had to shift, and I was thinking to myself, is this what the future is actually really going to look like, where partners have to agree? Because if she's in IT, for example, it will be very easy for her to call home and say, you know what, I'm going to be home at 4 a.m., which means her partner will then have to take on some of these domestic chores. So do you think, Prossy, that our culture or the world as a whole is ready for what's going to take place with the women empowerment? Just like you said, women today, I think before, if I go back a bit into history, when the World War happened and then the women had to go into offices and work, and then the men came back and they're like, okay, now we can take over. And then the women were like, actually, it wasn't so bad, because I was actually watching YouTube and they were saying computer program was actually started by women.
Yeah, the first computer programmer.
Yeah, the first computer programmer was a woman. Yeah. But now, if we as ladies go to attend, classes, I remember I'd put up my hand to ask, why do I have to put a semicolon, because I couldn't understand. And you'd see, the guy's eyes rolling like, oh, here we go again. A woman can't understand what are you doing in the class anyway? So I'm wondering, are the men, like we've talked about, this is a season for women empowerment, like anything. Are the men, Prossy, do you think the men are ready to pitch in to what has been known as the ladies' arena, if I can.
Of course.
And of course, with the coding, we're taking our rights back. It's not like we're taking our sector back, if I can put it that way. But also, I think it's important for people to understand when we started coding at Hills at Kafero Foundation, what we realized is we put out something called Hackers Yacht, which was programming for everybody, but we realized that it was only the young men who were coming in.
Mm-hmm.
And we were wondering, where are the ladies, until we said, okay, you know what, let's do a free scholarship for these ladies to come and try out programming in a very non-threatening way. And then, Coding in Hills was born. Now, I don't know, how many are you in class? Definitely more than 7.
Yes.
More than 7
actually
ladies.
10.
They're 10,
Yeah.
and they're doing very, very well. So, and yet when we mention, it's like, oh, ladies in programming. But Prossy, do you think there's going to come a time when these roles are going to be mixed up, and it's okay for a man to be like, oh, my wife has traveled to Nairobi, she's doing a course, and I'm going to stay home and cook, and that's okay?
The time has come already. There is nothing like there is going to come a time.
Mm-hmm.
The time has come already, because women have embarked on the roles where men thought they would do them only, or the culture thought that these jobs are for men only. So now we have started to do those jobs like engineering. You've seen women climbing up the ladders, doing the fixing of the lights and whatnot. So now when you talk about coding is actually not that hard for it to be put as a men's job only. So it is about someone's passion, it's about someone's thinking, it's about how someone can think of changing a life through coding and internet. And as of now, internet is revolving, IT is going up the mainstream. So if you say that it's only for men, there's actually a time that is going to come and men can't be enough.
Yes.
And they are going to opt for women, and we'll be ready. We're ready there.
They'll be, you've heard, the women will be ready. Niles, one thing I also wanted to ask you about is when you look at the future, obviously, like our population, Uganda's, we're almost 50-50.
Yeah.
When you look at jobs really like being eradicated, especially for the women, where we have things like automation that, it's interesting that women's jobs are the first to go, because when you have things like a bank teller, most girls are like, it's okay, I'll do that. I'll do customer service, I'll do administration, I'll be a secretary. And some of these entry points are actually off the grid already. What advice would you give to women today in terms of preparing themselves for the future? Because we also have a situation where when we talk about women empowerment, a lot of the ladies, when you sit in ladies' meetings, they say they actually were not looking for empowerment per se, but they've kind of been pushed into this position because they're saying, they're not getting any support, they're having to find tuition, they're having to pay the rent and stuff like that. So what advice would you give to women in preparation for their future?
Don't compromise. As you say, oftentimes women are like, oh, I would settle being a bank teller or being an administrative assistant when you really should be the manager of the office. So be the manager of the office.
Yeah.
All right.
If jobs are being eliminated, go for the jobs that you're qualified for, not for the jobs that you think you should do just because you're a woman. Just because you're a woman means you can do anything that you set your mind to, and you shouldn't let anybody stop you from doing that. That's the best advice I can give. Equality between genders is a difficult issue. There's really no country in the world that's reached true gender equality. Sweden is perhaps the closest of all countries. It's really very close to true gender equality there. But there's still work to be done, and that work is going to require women to be willing not to compromise and to be willing to stand up to male patriarchy, and that's essentially what it is. So women, go out, do it. Don't let anyone stand in your way. That's the advice I can give you.
Nice. It looks like we're so pro-women. We also want to thank the men. I don't want it to look like we're one-sided, because I know that, for example, Kafero Foundation, yes, our office is majority men, but they're so supportive. They're really supportive, You can come and like, I don't know how to do this. How do I edit this? But I also want to appreciate the men who, and I think this generation of guys kind of understands us and gets us because maybe they were born in this time. but they understand us, and I can appreciate the men out there who are supporting their women, women who are now in the boardrooms and everything like that. Prossy, for you, what's your take? Miles has said, for women, what's your take on men? What advice would you give the man who is nervous about his wife becoming, she comes home and she says, guess what? I was promoted. I'm the CEO.
Oh, no. They should actually feel good about it, because we are sharing. Now it's more of like you're looking at income inflow. Since now income is kind of scarce, the shilling, looking at Uganda, the shilling is dropping once in a while. So if the men step aside, they're actually giving us a chance to work with them. It's we are working together. There shouldn't be so much of as if they want to keep everything to themselves. And the good thing is that men are actually allowing us to do these jobs, and they're giving us chances, and they're actually so excited. Looking at Kafero, if you go to ask for help, they're actually very happy. They were excited that we started doing the codec. So I don't think they'll have difficulty in cooperating with us.
Niles, do you want to add on?
I just think from my perspective, it's not about thinking about whether it's a man's job or a woman's job. It's just they're your colleagues. So do you want a capable colleague or a colleague who's going to not shirk on their duties? And from my perspective, I just want someone who's going to do their job and do their job well. So if that just happens to be a woman, fantastic. If it happens to be a man, fantastic. I'm trying not to make a judgment based off of, oh, this is administrative, so it should be a woman's work. No. The expectation should be on the men that they can do that work as well. There's no such thing as a job that's not worth doing well.
It's funny you should say that. Recently we were in a ladies' talk, and it was talking about professionalism and women in the workplace. And the ladies were bringing up really interesting things that I'd not thought about. For example, I don't know if it's here in Uganda, but we have this saying, the deals are done at 2 a.m. The deals are cut at 2 a.m., usually in bars and, and so on. And hardly are they done in the boardroom. So the ladies were actually expressing that it's a bit hard to join the men's club, because they'll go for cigars, something like that. So they were wondering, as a woman, it looks very odd for you to be out in the bar at 2 a.m., yet for the men, that's where they're going to sit down, order for a bottle of whiskey or whatever, and cut it.
But I have an issue with that. Why is that man not at home taking care of his children and being a partner to his wife and helping with the domestic chores? I mean, you can advance without having to go out to a bar and drink. I actually have an issue with that culture that the expectation is that the man can just work long hours and not have to be a partner who contributes at home. And that's what I'd like to see change. And that goes to men too. Men have to be able to say, I want to have a domestic life. I want to be able to contribute to my partnership at home. I want to be there to feed dinner to my children. That's one of the things that I really try to make a point of, being home so that I can spend time with my children before they go to bed. And if I have to work after that, then I will work after my children are in bed. But I don't want to miss the few hours that I have available to me in the day to be with them.
Wow.
Because they're young. And at some point, they won't remember me if I'm not there.
Oh, wow. That's music to a lot of women's ears, I'm sure, right now. One thing, like we at Kafara Foundation, we've been providing digital skilling for about 20,000 youth. We are in the digital revolution right now, and it has turned a lot of things upside down. I think this is why we're here at the moment, because the world is no longer as it used to be. Technology has changed so many things at the moment. When you project maybe 10 years from now, even looking at the education system, because all these things that we're talking about with the cultural differences, actually I don't think they're learned in school, but they're learned right from home. Because here in the Ugandan or African culture, we still had that situation where a mother will have a son and a daughter, but then the daughter is the one who, come and help me cook and everything, and then the son is the one, go wash the car and, the male duties. But now with the digital, do you think that the digital space is going to change the family makeup? Because now all the children, regardless of gender, whether it's a boy or girl, they're all fighting for the tablet, they're all fighting for the smartphone. Do you think that the family, should I call the family scene, is going to change? Because they do say the smallest government is the family,
Yeah.
and then it ripples into the actual nation. How do you think the digital revolution is going to change family? Because I see it, actually, I think that's why we're here. Prossy no longer has to go and climb a mast just to be in IT. She doesn't have to go, by the time we were doing IT, we were climbing through false ceilings, and that's where I was like, whoa, these are really called male jobs for a reason. But now it's a matter of being on a laptop and you can program just about anything. Do you think the digital revolution is also changing the structure of family?
Yes, I mean, all technology is disruptive, not just digital technology. I mean, you want to go back in history, when the plow was invented, that was very disruptive technology, about people to cultivate more and larger gardens so that they could have excess food that they could then sell and they could send their children to school. So yes, digital technology is disruptive in the same way, but I think that in addition to the many benefits it brings, it's disruptive also socially in a way that we're not prepared for.
Yeah.
Digital technology, we're conducting a huge experiment on ourselves, and we don't know what the result will be. So, I mean, I'm very positive in general. I think social media technology, digital technology, computer technology, it has enormous benefits in terms of productivity and connectivity, but also some downsides, particularly when it comes to socialization and connectivity to other humans, like actual interfacing with individuals.
And Yusuf, what do you have to say about that, Prossy?
Digital
The digital revolution, is it going to change the family setup?
Of course, it's going to change the family setup, not only looking at how we are looking at men and women, but actually we have those ladies who actually are the pillars of the family. You find we have single mothers who can actually bring food to the table just because of technology. We are so lucky that technology is revolving, that we are looking at more and more opportunities for women and men. So at the end of the day, we don't actually have to look at only women, but we can work as a team to see that we are there when the technology is readily available and advancing, and we are able to tap into that. Because as you see, from 2018 now, the change in the internet and the IT has really gone up like at around 80%. It's running at a high speed. So we should be able to chase it, regardless of a man or a woman. But if we work as a team, we can chase it, and actually we are there to live a better life.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So now that we've tackled just about that, Niles,
Yes.
Obviously with the culture, what things have you seen? I don't know, how long have you been in Uganda?
About over a year and a half.
Over a year.
Wow.
What have you seen that you love about the culture? We've talked about some of the the negative aspects, and what have you loved about the culture here?
Well, Ugandan culture isn't monolithic. There are many different, depending on where you are, people have very different practices. So it's hard for me to identify any one thing because there are different aspects that I like from different cultures within Uganda. But generally, I've felt very welcome here. I feel like this has been a fantastic place to be, a fantastic place to be with my family, to travel. I've met some incredible people. I've been consistently impressed with the diversity of Uganda, as well as the sort of refusal to quit in the face of adversity, if that makes sense.
Yes.
But on the same hand, there's a little bit of fatalism that I find a little hard. People are unwilling, sometimes they're willing to suffer through a lot, but they're unwilling to change, to take the steps necessary to change the fact that they're suffering. And that's hard for me to say, if I'm traveling around and I see a subsistence farmer whose land isn't big enough to support their family, but if they could do some more intensive agricultural practices, that they could potentially then go on to not only feed their family, but have excess money to send their children to school. And that's, but it's a lack of knowledge. I don't know. It's difficult. So that's one of the things that's been hard for me.
I think it's the mindset, having to change the mindset, because everywhere we go, even in just education, it's a debate. Like I guess the worldwide debate, the education system that we currently have across all nations. is it practical for the person living today and in the future? Because what we've talked about in school, when we talk about culture and how a boy will perceive a girl 5 years, 10 years from now, starts from home and the culture, but yet we're in school, still doing mathematics, still doing history of, years ago. We're not even, I don't know why we're not replacing the history books, because so much has happened, so much has happened. I know when I was in school, unfortunately, my history was mixed up because I went to school in Lesotho, did some of that, went to South Africa, did some of that, came here. So my history is a bit scattered, but I do remember a few things, South African history, a bit of Mau Mau rebellion, I think, which if you ask me today, I don't know how it can help. However, there's some things like the U.S., the former U.S. president, that was really a historic moment, but yet we're not putting it in the history books, So I don't know, what can we change in the education system to help us, help our children and ourselves prepare for the future? Because Obama becoming a president for the U.S., that is history, that was history. Anywhere in the world where they had the female president, the first female president, that's history, but yet we don't see it. But yet this is also something that young ladies could look up to and say, wow, that was the first female president, or that was the first female prime minister. UK now has a female prime minister. So when these things, when history is not revolving, I think we also have an issue. Prossy, if you could place something in the education system, what would it be?
Okay, if I would place something in the education, I would look at the syllabus, mostly in the IT sector, because when you look at what the syllabus is teaching now, it's more of how does Microsoft work, and we already stop there. So at the end of the day, if we could put in something more that is IT, like we teach them how to do a web, so because kids can pick up something from there and they're interested, and you find through that their future is bright. Because why I loved IT, they introduced IT when I was in S2, and I was like, okay, I loved computer, and I was like, okay, I have to do IT, whatever comes may. Because now you find a child is studying, and they reach university, and they actually don't know what they want to be. So if they could push in and put in reality, the reality is more like they put in things that are applying more than the history that we're doing, things could be better for the education of these kids.
Okay. I wanted to actually take some comments from our viewers. I hope I'll be able to I know we have Ann Tendo, who has said good communication indeed. We have, oh great, thank you. So Tito Ter Manyang in South Sudan, some men do not allow their women to work in public domain due to gender stealing and culture. What is your advice? There's need to introduce what we call. Okay, yeah, so Tito, you're also talking about in South Sudan, some men don't allow their ladies to work in public. And this is what we're talking about. I guess every country has its culture. Some of the things we may not understand because we're not from there. Because trust me, even my own culture, there are things that till today, they'll say the mother-in-law is not supposed to shake the hand of the son-in-law.
Yeah.
So, it's
Yeah.
yeah, true. You're not supposed to hug. There's no physical contact.
What's the basis?
I think the basis is to protect infidelity. I hope I'm not saying the wrong thing, but I believe that's what it is.
Yeah.
So that culture. But Tito, I think like we've stated, it's a mindset change, because as Niles mentioned here, technology has taken us on a path that none of us thought would be on. No one sat and imagined that would be where we are, maybe from like the year 2000 or 95 when the internet had just come. We didn't know. I didn't know that I would be able to sit and communicate, with the whole world and and discuss a very touchy subject. And of course, the following is huge on the embassy side. But I think it all comes down to a mindset change. I think what we can't ignore is that we need to change our minds for the current age. Unfortunately, there's no education system doing it. There's no one prepared us and said, look, by 2018, this is what's going to happen in society. People will be communicating on social media. People will be communicating through their screens. So I think even in South Sudan, it's about sensitizing the men and telling them there's nothing wrong with your lady going out in public. And as I said, I don't know what the root of that such a statement is, where a woman is not to work in the public. I have no idea, but I think it still comes down to mindset change, because I may not actually go to work in public. I may be at home and work on my laptop, and I'm working, but I'm not in public. So I think it comes down to mindset change. For me, I say the digital space, before anything, we need to sensitize people on what this space is, because we're all just feeling ourselves along the way. But I think that's what we had to share today. We want to thank the U.S. Embassy for hosting us. We thank Kafero Foundation for having made this program available. We want to thank the famous chef,
Niles
Cole, because I tell you, you should have a face-off with Gordon Ramsay. He won't know where to start.
He would kill me. Gordon's much better.
And I want to thank Prossy, who's coming from Kafero Foundation's program Coding in Heels. Thank you for taking our stage back as women coders.
It's a pleasure.
And it's been lovely. We thank you for watching as well. And we thank you for your comments. We're going to go through and hopefully we'll be able to respond. Thank you so much for watching.